Sam, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing today, brother?
Yeah, man. Sweet. 2018. How we doing? How you doing?
Ready to make it the best year ever, man. Ready to make it count.
Yeah, man, for sure, man. So let's put you on the platform, man. I mean, who is Sam, and like, how did you get into the music scene, man?
Well, man, as far as getting into the music scene, man, music's been my passion since as far back as I can remember. I was playing piano as a pretty young kid. Got into rap and hip hop around the age of 10 and 11. I was pretty much a knucklehead growing up, man. You know, I was selling drugs and just living that lifestyle and just in love with that lifestyle. Kind of just made my whole ambition was to be a famous rapper, you know, and so the only credentials I needed were to have kind of a shady past. So I was working on my flows and working on breaking the law and just doing what I could to get the street cred that I thought I would need to, you know, to make it in the rap game, because that was my ambition, man. And it started taking off for me around the age of 18. I met my wife now, had my son, and right around that same time, music started going really well for me. Hooked up with some, you know, Billboard artists and some kind of prominent artists that, you know, were kind enough to take me under their wing and kind of mentor me a little bit and give me connections. And I started touring around the country and making some money and, you know, getting some buzz under the alias Sketchy Waves. So Sketchy Waves was the name the moniker that I was using. But, you know, the more success I got, the more accolades that I accumulated, it just felt the more I wanted. It was never really a fulfilling pursuit. I was always just wanting more and more and more and better and better and better, and never satisfied with anything I got. And I was putting my family just on the back burner, my wife and son, just neglecting them emotionally, while I was just out kind of chasing my own ambitions, you know. And it all came to a head one day when I essentially lost my family, man. You know, like my wife ended up leaving me. I moved out of the house we were living in and ended up on a couch at my office and just on my knees, man. And I was a broken man, and I reached out to God and then listened to him, you know. And that's probably when it all really started for me, you know. I feel like God showed me a lot in those moments. I received a lot of revelations about who I had been as a person and who I felt like who God wanted me to be as a person. And I can't say it was an overnight change, but it was definitely just a rapid change from there. God called me. You know, my family was broken, man. My wife had moved on. She was seeing somebody else. It was, you know, by all standards, it was over. But I was convicted through prayer that God would restore my family. And I felt he was calling me to walk away from the music scene that I had worked so hard to build over the past 10 years. I felt he was calling me to walk away from selling drugs, and I did. I mean, long story short, I did. It wasn't just overnight again. It was kind of, I wrestled with myself for quite some time, but I finally gave it all to God and just walked away from my music, walked away from dealing drugs, and just kind of stepped out in faith that God would, you know, restore my family and provide for us. And that's essentially exactly what happened, man. Like, I'm not a perfect man, but I'm night and day different from the man I was then. I walked away from music for a few years and focused on just kind of establishing, a financial stability for my family in place of the drug dealing that I had done and music that I was selling, because walking away from both of those, that was really my only source of income. So I just, focused on providing and being a family man. And within a year, I was a managing member of a company that was doing $1 million in revenue every year. So God was really faithful in providing me with, you know, financial stability for my family. And after, I just started feeling compelled to get back into music, feeling, you know, like I never quit writing. I should say I never did stop writing. I stepped away from music. I stepped away from the pursuit of music, but I've always used, you know, music as an expression. That never really stopped. And the things that I was writing, you know, it was really just like expressions of my struggles and praising God for the things he was doing in my life. And I didn't really have any intention of releasing them at the time, but then things started happening that kind of made me feel like I was supposed to release them. So I did. I ended up putting the album out a couple years after it was written and recorded. I ended up releasing it. So I sat on it for a long time, kind of scared of getting back into the music scene because I was just so familiar with the vanity and the ego side of the industry, and just how much it had corrupted me even. But I finally did release it, and when I did release it, I jumped right back into that mentality of like, oh, you got to push it, you got to get numbers, you got to get exposure, you got to go out and get editorials and blog reviews and yada yada yada. But I quickly realized, man, that that's not where God's heart was for my project. I don't believe that God's heart for a musician is to get famous. I believe that God's heart, for me personally anyway, maybe some, you know, he's got a plan for them to blow up and change the world. But for me personally, I feel like I'm more blessed when I take my music on a personal level, on a grassroots level. If I can just reach one person through my music, if I can counsel one person who is encouraged and edified and lifted up from my music, then that's worth it. You know, it's not about selling 1 million records and making $1 million. It's about ministering to somebody, you know, and using your struggles and your expressions to maybe help somebody else out and let them know they're not alone, you know, and lead them to a light source, you know, that can help them through their dark times. So really, man, like I don't have all the answers. I've been a Christian for several years now, but I still call myself a baby Christian because I feel like the more I learn, the less I know. I'm extremely undogmatic about my faith. I don't really. A lot of my Christian friends kind of look at me funny because I've got more questions than answers. But I do know that my faith in God and turning my life over to Jesus has 100% changed my life. It's restored my family. My wife and I, my son, he's 11 years old. We just had a daughter. She's turning 1 year. Actually, tomorrow's her birthday. She'll be a year old. And it's just been miraculous, man. I just see such a drastic difference. And whenever I get like down on myself or struggling in the moment, I can step back and really see this kind of bigger picture working itself out in my life from where I was before I was submitting to a higher power to where I am now. You know, like I don't have everything figured out, but man, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? So that's really it in a nutshell, man. I hope that wasn't too long-winded.
I was just thinking as you're chatting, I was like, yo, this is like testimony stories, man. Like you went in like the whole question that was answered like for like one whole testimony. But yeah, man. That's the one massive thing then, like your life's been changed massively, obviously, by Jesus. So that's awesome. That's great news. So you say like your wife was restored to you then, like she went with someone else, but then she came back to you. Yep.
She ended up coming back to me, man. Just she had a lot of anger and hate for me, honestly, for the neglect that I had put her through, and she was done with me. But God convicted me through prayer. It was crazy, man. People thought I was nuts because God was. I mean, in those weeks, God was giving me daily revelations, like prophetic revelations. Like, you can expect this today from your wife and from the world around you. And then I would go out in the world, and that's exactly what would happen, you know? And along with those daily revelations and almost prophecies he was giving me, he was giving me a larger one. Like, your wife is going to come back to you. Your family's going to get restored. And then it's up to you to make good, you know, and to be the man that I'm calling you to be right now here in this moment, you know? And sure enough, man, like I stayed true to what he was calling me to do, and within a couple of months, my wife had left that other guy, and she was coming back to me, and we were working it out, and we're stronger than ever.
Wow, man, that's awesome. That's an amazing story, man. It's an excellent story to hear that you know everything came back to what it was. Kind of sounds a bit like the Job story, like kind of got everything back, even better than before, kind of thing.